I got to tell you, even though Barack may be one of the most pro-worker Democrats that we've ever nominated, he's also up against one of the biggest obstacles that we've ever faced. And it's not because he's wrong on the issues. He's not. It's because there are a lot of white workers, quite frankly, some of them union members, who think he's the wrong race. I was reminded of that back in the Pennsylvania primary. I went back to vote in the primary, and I ran into a woman that I've known her all my life. She was active in Democratic politics when I was still in grade school. We got to talking, and I asked her if she'd made up her mind who she was going to vote for. She said, "Oh, absolutely, Rich. I'm voting for Hillary. There's no way that I'd ever vote for Barack Obama." And I said, "Well, why is that?" And she said, "Well, because he's Muslim." And I said, "Well, that's really not true. He's as much Christian as you and I, and besides, who cares if he's Muslim? I don't." Then she shook her head and she said, "Well, he won't wear an American flag pin on his lapel." And I looked down and I said, "I don't have one on him. Quite frankly, you don't either." And he wears one plenty of times. He just thinks it takes more to be patriotic than wearing a plastic flag pin that might have been made in some foreign country. And then she said to me, "Well, I just don't trust him." And I said, "Well, why is that?" And until this time, we had been making perfect eye contact. And at this moment, she lowered her voice and she started looking at the ground and she said, "Because he's black." And I said to her, I said, "Take a look around this town, this little mining town. This is a dying town. There's no jobs here. Kids are moving away because there's no future here. And here's a man, Barack Obama, who is going to fight for folks like us and fight for our kids and fight for a future like that. And you're telling me that you won't vote for him because of the color of his skin." I said, "My God, lady, this is 2008. Get out of your mind." You see, we can't tap dance around the fact that there are an awful lot of folks out there just like that woman in Pennsylvania and in Ohio and in Michigan and a couple other states. They're losing their health care. They're losing their pensions. They're losing their jobs. Some of them are losing their homes. And they all want change. And they desperately need change. But they just can't accept the fact that voting for a black man named Barack Obama is the only way to make that change happen. Now, there are two strategies that Democrats can respond with. One, we can cross our fingers and pray to God people like that don't vote. And the other is to educate them. And that's what we in the labor movement are going to do. Because we need to remind them. We need to remind them of something that I think all of us know. It's that racism is a tool that's used to divide working people. And that the only way working people have ever won anything in this country is by crossing that color line. By turning to each other and not on each other. And by recognizing that our common interest as working people is far more important than race ever was. That's how steel workers organize, that's how auto workers organize, that's how the UMWA organized the coal fields, that's how AFSCME organized all across Ohio. And there's something else that we need to do. We need to make sure that working people have the facts. Not only about who Barack Obama is, and what a real friend he is to all of us, but also about what John McCain isn't. And I can tell you this, he's no upstart or no insurgent. He's not a candidate who will fight for change. Working people need to know that the real John McCain voted with George Bush and Dick Cheney 95% of the time last year. That the real John McCain voted to privatize Social Security. That the real John McCain has a health care plan that would tax your benefits, and the more lucrative your benefits are, the higher the tax will be. that the real John McCain wants to give a $4 billion tax cut to 5 oil companies. They need to know that while Barack Obama worked to help unemployed steelworkers, John McCain voted for trade laws that created those unemployed steelworkers. The truth is that if John McCain were any closer to big business, he'd be listed on the New York Stock Exchange. Over the next 2 months, we need to get the message out that a worker who votes for John McCain is like a chicken voting for Colonel Sanders. Oh, my staff's going to finish on this one. And if you vote Republican in 2008, you're bound to get plucked. All right, our message to working people has to be that if you want to make college affordable, if you want trade laws that will work for working people, if you want to keep your jobs, your health care, your pensions, your homes, if you want to end the war in Iraq and use that money to build new schools and bridges and roads in Cleveland and Columbus and in Dayton and Youngstown and Toledo and Cincinnati, then there's only one candidate on the ballot this fall that's going to do all of that for you, and his name is Barack Obama, and it's going to be helped by Joe Biden, and we're going to make him president November 4th.